Hey guys, my name is Dorian Avila. I'm a logo designer, and in this episode we're going to create this vintage logo design. Alrighty, so let's get right into it. So I have this image ready here prepped. It's going to be a chicken logo. It's just a mock-up. We're going to start out with the Blob Brush with Shift B. And I just used the default setting, so you don't have to get all specific with that. And we're just going to go ahead and just do a basic outline of the chicken in this case. And once again, the great thing about the Blob Brush is that it really helps you autocorrect a lot of the lines and the curves that you make with your design. So as an example, if you do a little curve, even if it's a little shaky, it helps you out. It kind of fixes the curve. I'll show you guys again. See that? That's just beautiful. It's really helpful. I mean, that's something you guys can, if you're not using the Blob Brush, using the pen tool, you guys can recreate yourself, but it just really helps having this tool. So this style is really messy, so it doesn't have to be perfect. We're just using the image of the chicken as a tracing template. I got this image from unsplash.com. You guys can visit that site. It has tons of pictures that are commercial free. And again, this is just a mock-up logo. So we're just gonna have fun with this. Alrighty, now that we have the outline of the chicken, again with this style, we're just going really messy. I'm gonna start out right with the eye, just to identify where the eye goes. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It's kind of a grungy kind of a style. So you can go really crazy with the details. And at first it may be looking a little messy, but once you add a lot of details, it really comes to life. I want to me making more of these videos for you guys, so if you guys can leave in the comment section what type of logo designs you guys would like to see. And by that I mean like specifically the type of like a mock-up company logo, or maybe just in general what type of videos you guys want to see. I plan on adding some tutorials on just some basic Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop techniques for logo design. Here we're taking liberty with going around this section of the I keep saying chicken, but I think it's a rooster. This section here, see how the feathers kind of change from up here to down here. So I'm making that an outline of that a little bit, and then just from here, just kind of roughly tracing where some of the feathers are. And like I've said before in my previous video, I'm gonna close down this layer. It looks messy at first, so have faith in the process. Don't base your design on what you're seeing, but what it's going to look like. So again, we're just going to trace some of these lines, some of these indicators for feathers, and using the Blob Brush, I'm gonna go to this wing right here, and I'm using a pen and pad. It's much easier than a mouse, especially because of pressure. You can use a mouse. It'll just be a little bit more of a challenge, but it's doable. I used a mouse for years before I got a pen and pad. And we're just going to trace some of these feathers on the tail. connecting this section with that section sticking out right there. And then just identifying the parts that stick out. All these big feathers. And just be loose with this, controlled but loose with this style. It's not meant to be a painting or too precise kind of style. My previous video, I made a logo that used more of that crosshatch vintage style that had a little bit more of how do you say, it's more organized. Just the lines were a little bit more purposeful. They were not as loose as this. But again, with this style, you can be as loose as you want. It's more of a fun style. Gives you a lot of liberty to mess up and just dictate where you want your lines. Take liberty with that. It helps having a light source. Sometimes an image or your reference might not have a strong light source, and once you're tracing your image, it might not have that beautiful contrast you're looking for. So what you can do is go ahead and add one yourself. I'll show you guys how to do that right now. It just gives the design a little bit more of more life. And we're just, again, tracing roughly the areas that stand out. After we're happy with some of the tracing we're doing, we're gonna close the original image, that way we can add in our own details. But for now, I'm just gonna continue to roughly add more details in there. I'm gonna go to that layer, unlock it, and make the opacity a little bit bigger. You can see a little bit more of those details. And you can add as many as you want. The more details, the better. It'll once you zoom out, it'll just have a little bit more life to it, because it has all these complex little lines and details and whatnot. And I'm just having fun with it. So as you can see, I'm just jumping around all over the place. It's just a preference. You can work on just the head for a while. I'm not liking how that came out. I'm using Command Z to go back on that. Command C is, most of you already know, is going to be your best friend when working with Illustrator or Photoshop. Pretty sure everybody knows that command. If you don't know that command, you're in trouble. Just gonna add a little more definition to this nail right here. And again, very messy style. Very, very messy. It's not very how do you say, controlled, or it has its own type of beauty. Not very detailed in the sense that every little line is perfect and whatnot. So again, we're just jumping around. Just have fun with it. Just trace where you think feather would be. Just trying to get every little major detail in here. Just have fun with it. Be loose with it. Don't stress out of it, and don't zoom in and out and trying to get judge your image too soon, because it still needs a lot of little things for it to come to life. So for example, if we were just to leave it there, it's a little messy. It's coming somewhat to life, but if you just left it there, you'd be disappointed. Again, have faith in the process. It's not going to look like the final product at its initial stages, so just stick with it. And like I said in my previous video, you draw the way you feel. So if you're in a bad, sour mood, that's going to reflect on your designs, and it's actually going to reflect on a lot of stuff in life you do. So I encourage you guys, it's so important to stay positive, keep a smile on your face even when it's tough, because your art will reflect that. You're not going to be inspired. Every line you make, every decision you make is going to be based on a place of bitterness and in some cases sadness. And art's supposed to be positive, supposed to be fun. So really make that a mission. It's a must. I don't know of any artists that enjoy doing art angry. I don't know if there's such a thing. But in general, you want to keep a positive attitude, having fun. For me, art is very therapeutic. It makes me feel good. It calms me down. If I ever got to a place where I'm not happy doing the art, I mean, I wouldn't want to continue doing art if it's causing me grief. And you know, there is a place for discipline and pushing yourself, doing, especially if you want to do art for a living. There are times you want to push yourself past your feelings, past, even if you don't feel good, you do have to be purposeful about making yourself continue to do art. And it'll get, as you learn more, it gets more fun as well. Even when, I mean, personally, I love learning. A lot of this I'm self-taught. You know, it's 2019, practically 2020. So a lot of the stuff I know is just self-taught or videos. So there's really no excuse to not get better. It must have been so difficult in the 90s and before. I wasn't doing art professionally in the 90s. I'm 36, but back then you had to go to a library or buy a book or pay for a big expensive class, and nowadays you just Google everything or just YouTube everything. So there's a lot of resources, and if you're not making it with all these things working in your favor, then honestly you're not trying hard enough. So I encourage you guys to really open your eyes and see how much of a blessing it is to have all this technology, and you can really do a lot of stuff that you wouldn't be able to do back a few years ago. Okay, so we're going to close this layer down, the image, and from here, making a separate layer, we're going to create a layer. We're going to name it Sun. We're going to lock the layer we're doing our chicken on, or rooster. Yeah, if there's any farmers out there, they're going to kill me for calling a rooster a chicken. Okay, so we're going to create a light source, and we just decided that it's right here like we did on our... Oh, messed up right there. Picked the wrong color. So a predetermined color palette, as you can see over here. It's like a black a bluish and a kind of a white cream. Anyway, so we're going to create our light source right there, the sun, and this is going to dictate where our shadows would be. And again, common sense, your light source is right here. It's going to have a lot of highlights around the object in the front. Sometimes a lot of people don't know that sometimes light, well, not sometimes, all the time, bounces. So while your light source may be right here, you would think that there would be no highlights down here since the light is hitting right over here. But sometimes light bounces and actually hits the floor and then bounces up a little bit. So you'll get a slight highlight. Not as much as you would in the front, but you'll get a slight highlight. And sometimes if an object is of a color right here, let's say the chicken is just brown, but if and the light source is white, but if the object that the light is bouncing is initially hitting, that it was a box over here, to do that blue. There was an object down here and it's blue, and this light hits it and it bounces. Sometimes it casts just a slight blue highlight or whatever color the object may be, even if the other object is a different color. Trying to find this layer with the sun here. Just gonna get rid of some of these arrows so they're not in the way. There you go. And it's really important always to lock your layers if you're working on another layer. That way you can select just the head, just the feet, just the sun, and you're not leaving everything on one layer. Especially if you want to make changes in the future. You should be able to come to your design 6 months later and still be able to know where everything is at. Okay? Anyways, so we're going to name this layer shadows. Whenever possible, name your layers. It just makes life so much easier. You'll thank yourself for it. Okay, so I'm going to add some shadows behind this wing here. Now with the brackets, you can make your brush smaller or bigger. I'm just going with the smallest size here, just to add some detail. And I'm gonna add some detail to this feather right here. Again, a very messy style. Gonna zoom out a little bit and see where that's a feather right there. That's a feather, so there would be shadow everywhere right there. And this style is meant to be viewed somewhat from far away. If you're really closed in, it looks a little messy. So this feather kind of curved, so there would be shadows under here and a little bit right there. And we're just adding a little grunge on top of the shadows. And the grunge, and by grunge I mean like little details like that, just crazy little details. And they both add shadow and just details, just random details. And just this part is a really fun part, so just enjoy it, take time with it, and just continue to have faith with that process, that even if it doesn't look the way you think it ought to look right away. Zoom into the feet here. And a little thickness down here to the feet to represent shadow. Some lines. And you can do the opposite way, just again, put a little bit of detail and shadow. going crazy with it, really loose and controlled. So we would expect to find a lot of shadow down here under this wing. And in the opposite way, some lines. Just going back and forth. You would expect to have a lot of shadow down here since the light source is over here. I'm not sure what the flap on the roosters, this little thing they have on their throat, is called. But we're adding some shadow right under it to make it stand out, give it a little contrast. Same thing here with this little headpiece. Just adding little details to it. And these are supposed to represent just kind of a messy little hairs on the chicken. And I am capable, I draw a lot too sometimes, traditional art, some acrylics, watercolors, and I am capable of doing every single little feather perfectly, but I just don't enjoy that because I feel like it just looks like everybody else's work. So I really enjoy this messy, controlled kind of style. I really get a high from it, to be honest. And I feel that maybe some people find this this style, either they don't like it or they just find it more difficult than just straightforward art where everything is just more symmetrical and aligned and just more detailed in the sense where every little feather is accounted for, every little line is on purpose. There's no chaos. Everything's in harmony, and personally, it's just not my style. Try to do things a little different. Again, back and forth. Just forget what the style that's called, a cross hitch, I believe. Crosshatch or scratch board. I know there's a few names for it, but I know it's a vintage style. Okay, and we're gonna concentrate on it. Continue to add more shadows back here, so there's some highlight over there. I'm just gonna go a little crazy here. And just continue to just add more details to the feathers. This part can take some time, so I'm making this for the video, but normally I'd have a drink, and I drink, I make some coffee. Have some coffee and some soothing music to just relax me and just to really enjoy the process. But for this video, there's no music. Otherwise, it would my voice would get a little bit muffled with the music. I do add some music in my videos after I create what I'm going to create, but not as I'm doing it live. Again, I love to jump around. I don't want to be stuck in just one spot on the design, I just find it a little bit boring. And then we're just gonna add some big lines here, just to add a little shadow right there. Let's zoom into the face and just add a little grunge. Add a little detail. Maybe make this beak a little bigger. And the more detail you add like this, the more grunge, the more it's gonna look really nice once you zoom out. And just, you know, just patience. Keep adding more detail, more shadow. Especially back here, since there's no light source. I'm leaving a slight highlight in here, as you can see. I'm not adding a lot of shadow in there, just to make the design pop. And just keep adding some more details right there. This would have a lot more heavier shadow, so I'm going back. Okay, with Command, the minus and plus, you can zoom in and zoom out to your design, and with this, the hand tool, you can move your design around. So I have on my digital pin, I have 2 buttons, and I reserve that for my hand tool and my Blob Brush. It's so much easier than using the keyboard, especially for those 2 commands. That's what I use the most. Okay, might actually go back on the outline and just make it a little crazier. Right there. Some of the feathers sticking out. I think it adds a lot more character. It's really grungy. What a crazy hair down there. As you can see, the original image didn't have all this extra stuff. I just kind of added. That's the fun part about the style. You're using the image as a nice tracing template, but at the end of the day, it's the final product. It's going to look a little bit much different. You can see just a lot more details right there. Back and forth, back and forth. And we're almost done with this part, and then we're going to add some text. We're adding these lines here to, again, represent, highlight on the front. So add these lines right there. Just going a little crazy with it. And then zooming out just to look at the design a little bit, and then zooming back in. Where I feel would need more shadow. Just doing these lines, so it's just basically doing this. Boom, 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 and then boom, 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 just horizontal lines, and it adds a nice vintage grungy look to your your design. And just practice this style, because while it is easy to do it, this kind of style, it's kind of easy to do but hard to master. And I haven't mastered it, it's not what I'm saying, but it's hard to make it look on purpose is what I'm saying. So it's easy to do, but if you don't know what you're doing, you can make a mess, and people won't even be able to tell what in the world they're looking at. They won't be able to tell if it's a chicken or a cat if you're just throwing stuff in there with no purpose at all whatsoever. Just continue to add these lines. Right there. A few more lines down here. Alrighty, okay. I'm gonna close down our sun, and I think we're decently happy with that. So now comes in the text. And again, this is just a mock-up design. And just lock that layer. Now we go to our text, not the text, but the design was locked. And I'm gonna choose my favorite font in the world, GM High Top. And we're gonna make it all caps by going to this under character. These options, all caps. Or you can just type in the caps yourself. And holding shift, let's go Command C. Holding shift, if you go to one of the corners of the text, you can pull it or use the set font size option. I'm sorry. So we're gonna name this, it's gonna be a mock-up of, I don't know, a farm, egg farm company or something. So we're naming this Egg Heart. And we're gonna make it about maybe that big. Let's see. So this is going to go over the chicken like that. I love this style. And we're gonna get this blue right here. And then we're going to go to select the font on your layers. Let's try color burn. Nope, that's not gonna look good. Multiply should work, or darken. Okay, we're gonna give this kind of a curve. Can't really see the font, so we're gonna have to mess with that in just a minute. So we're gonna center this with align objects. I'm going to go up here to make envelope, and we're gonna give it a slight little curve to it. You can control this with the bend, either that way or this way. And there you go. And we're gonna center that. Gonna move this down with the arrows. There we go. So I'm considering making the whole chicken a different lighter color instead of the smoky black. Maybe just a light. There you go. That might work. Just not very happy with the results of the transparency here. Line doesn't work. Overlay doesn't work. So I'm gonna go to darken, and then we might make a copy of this. And try a few different things here until it gets to a place where we want it. Might even consider changing the color. Actually, that works. That works. Now, I always like saving all my colors up here on the swatches. So if you have a color that you like that you're using, pick it over here. Once you pick it, grab it from this section or this section, and just drop it in there. you'll keep those colors. That way you don't have to remember exactly what it was that you were using. Okay. So under text, we're adding more text. And we're gonna put just a description from farm to table. We're keeping the same font, same blue. This is gonna go on top. And go over here, align to center. And I'm gonna give that a curve. But this one's gonna be more, you know what? Let's first work on the separation between the letters. Let's type in, I don't know, 400. Let's try that. Go back up here to make envelope. Give this a nice strong curve, about that. There we go, center that. And then under here, we're gonna add more text. And farm fresh eggs. Oh, there you go. And same thing, we're adding that blue color. Just keeping that color. Oh, I'm gonna get that down here. We're using a different font for this. We use Golden Hills. We're not having that all in caps. And we're closing the gap on this. Making this somewhat bigger. Okay. And we're gonna make that a little bit closer in, touching. There you go, since it's kind of a cursive. Center that. We're gonna go ahead and make these little dashes much bigger, selecting them separately, then moving them down so they're a little bit more in the center. There you go. I'm gonna copy that, highlight the other sign, Command V, and paste that. That way we save ourselves time and we're not doing the same thing over again. Okay, and I think that's pretty much done. A little effect we're gonna do here is make another layer, and then getting that gray we had before, and getting the Blob Brush to its smallest size, and just tapping all over the sign, and it adds this additional kind of a grunge effect to the whole thing, just going crazy with it, just tapping it everywhere. You can probably hear that. I'm just gonna make it a little quieter, but you get the idea. Alright, so let me know what you guys think, and you guys have a good one. Thank you.